planning and zoning's decision on the subdivision.
You haven't. Okay, we'll call this public hearing to order. Would everyone please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
Councilman Mike Felix.
Here.
Councilwoman Kathy Beck.
Here.
Councilman Jacob Flutie.
Here.
Councilman Jerry Flutie.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on into the public hearing, dealing with Octagon Estates third edition. And I'll turn this right over to the planning and zoning officer, Mr. Emery.
Okay, so I'll give a quick overview of where we're at in the process and then both can get on in public comments. So the Octagon Construction Group Incorporated submitted a final plat for the Octagon third edition, Octagon Estates third edition subdivision, which is located just north of the water tank. Up there, if you look in your special meeting packet, there's a notice of decision from the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's got some key items about that. It's 13.9 acres. It's currently zoned RD 9000. It's not in a floodplain, it's not in a wetland, not a historical site. Property will have access to the town of Saratoga's water and sewer system, joint powers board. Property will have underground power, have access to lots from local roads as identified in the 2016 master plan. Municipal airport is located directly north. The development is not in conflict with the operation of the local airport. West is empty residential ground, south is empty ground, and east is residential. No excess noise or pollution will be produced with the development. On September 12, 2023, a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission was held. Notices for the hearing were published in according to Wyoming code. There was no written comments at that hearing. There was no agency comments. Public testimony in favor was none. Plus public testimony neutral was Randy Raymer, concerned that it wasn't going to get done. Public testimony received against, none. And then there is a list of things in the back that the Planning and Zoning Commission support as to its application's compliance with the Saratoga Town Code. And they recommended after that public hearing to approve the subdivision with certain conditions. That all financial assurances and development agreements be put in place for the project. Oh, you're up.
I really don't have anything. I think everything's good unless people have questions. So no audience has questions. I don't think so.
So you're good with the agreement, Bo?
Yeah, I think so. I think everything's fine. The main thing is we're trying to get as soon as we can in the spring, get it paved. Other than that, pretty much everything's good. I bought another snow plow yesterday, so we can do all the maintenance because we do have to plow snow.
Okay.
It'll be here full time. Other than that, I think we're good. So.
Okay. Does council have any questions for Bo?
Nope.
Kathy?
No questions.
Okay,
Cool.
thanks, Bo.
Easy. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
We have no public here. Is there any comments from anybody else? I'm gonna give it 5 minutes for the public. If nobody comes in, I'll have a motion to adjourn the public hearing. And we'll take formal action in the council meeting. You're not, Bo, you're not gonna try to do any paving this year, are
No, it's way too late now. Temperatures are too cold.
you? Thank you. It would just all go to hell if we did.
It is, yep. But no, it's as good as they can and bring hopefully for the project ready to go, so.
Well, Stacy, you're the only public person in here at this time. Do you have anything to say about, we're in a public hearing? Anything about the Octagon subdivision? And I'll have a motion to adjourn this public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Got a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
You guys thought about taking care of this? While the river's low. That stuff that we wanted to do that we couldn't do before spring. Take care of what? The rock bars and. And no. Just don't know if we're gonna. In the next, what, for 2 months would be the time to. Dig everything out of the river.
How long would it take to get them to the river? if we wanted to move that sandbar there in the middle.
I'd say Wolf Long in 100 days probably.
For Chuck.
How many days you thinking?
Probably about 3 months on all of them. If they make us get a individual water quality certification, if DEQ does that, then it's required to go to EPA for a 30-day comment period, which adds an additional 30 days on.
And then the Corps of Engineers kind of
And
deal.
they can do all of they kind of do everything simultaneously. But that's the hiccup. Now, we have individual water qualities.
Could it be done emergency? That's what I was wondering.
You can, and then they come in and permit it after the fact is how they'll usually do that, but would want to have pretty good public safety reason immediately endangering property, loss of life, discontinuing utilities to do that. Do you think it's just to dredge to bring water surface?
Well, that's where we wind up with issues with high water, right? Is it filling in down there and.
Well, we can't dig it out very much over there because there's line goes across there.
It's probably hitting this, you're talking right above the bridge, the highway bridge, all those in there. Well, the bridge having piers in there and that little, right there where the bridge is at, it's probably just gonna throw it right back in there to the next high water.
Kind of what happened the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deposition zone. You'd be money ahead probably to. You can add a lot more dirt on a dike and get way more flood reduction than you can removing. I mean, we could take 150,000 yards out of the river and get the same flood reduction as adding a foot to a accredited levee. And this dude that did this memo, we were working on a project and the Corps made him model all of that. You know, what would be the flood reduction if we took 200,000 yards out of the river? Well, it brought the water surface elevations down like 6 inches, but it was no different than adding like 6 inches of dirt on top of a dike that we already had.
Well, if you're gonna do something like that, you need to start clear over by the Saratoga Ranch and restore the bank all the way up through there. I think it would help.
Yeah, you want to increase your channel velocity all the way through town from the top all the way down through here to make sure that you didn't have. So once all that material gets moving, as soon as it hits something that slows it down, that sediment will fall out of the water. So, and I don't know where that point is. I don't know.
Well,
That's where the river gets wider right there past the bridge.
The velocity
That's where it dumps it.
down. Well, I mean, yeah, and I don't know how far up and how far down we would need to rechannelize to have that consistent velocity.
see, you know, I heard once from past council back in the day that they got up here and they got down to bedrock up by the hot pool, started messing with the temperature of the water. So they left there in a hurry. I don't know if that's true or not. I've just been.
I know the conservation. Pretty good.
Doing some extreme restoration of that.
Let's do something with it. That would be the time to do that.
Well,
I see no ponds,
Colorado.
bank out of the rock bar.
Well, I think
It's filled
the
back.
way to do it is not to be a past council. That's and pay, have it done.
Lots of super.
Offer free material.
We can give the rock to somebody who wants to come in and dig it out.
Yeah, I think they went through that deal
I've
and
called you several times today.
they couldn't have the rock,
Yeah, I remember something like that.
eh, something that had to go to the county and.
You can pay. If you sold it or whatever, then you pay a certain amount for it, but it could be worth it to somebody.
Anywhere else, like all over Arizona, that's where the guy pits are.
In the rivers. Sure.
Yeah.
I can remember, well, you do too. Doors down, just take it, haul it all out there and then whenever Corson's come through to crush from back, they'd crush it.
Yeah.
They'd crush out here at the junction and then come down here and crush for Little George. Or for Old George.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and it may have to look into it. Joe was talking to me. It's this, roads. But anyways, it's just fucking.
Yeah.
We can prove that.
Where you're coming from. Couldn't call it.
If you throw that flood scare on there, then you end up with the same shit we're fighting right now with insurance. That was all because John called them in 2 different years.
That's what I thought, maybe we could avoid it if we took care of it now.
Well, just go to the homeowner, say, we're talking about putting a berm down the edge of the river.
See,
I thought that's what.
It's
they
like
wanted.
Emery said, if you raise it 12 inches, it's better than digging out the river.
if you took rock out of the river,
Put
raise
it
it.
on fast.
Yeah.
And once I asked Joe about that. He said something, if I remember.
Yeah.
Well, changing my path of it. Instead of
You can.
fixing an issue. Then you run into the stuff.
Okay, okay, well,
As
there's
opposed
so
to
much,
removing excess material.
there's so much to that. And I was told you couldn't put a track unit in.
You can.
They just don't break out.
Shortly after that, I go by Casper, up there in Hills. They got 3 of them in there, right now, out there and the water running right underneath the
Yeah.
turntable. And the track goes.
Yeah.
Come up with that. So, without checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause if you could just load trucks, that's what I told him.
But when Eddie dug it out, it wasn't. That's only been 10 years now.
No, but Eddie spent. Shitload of money doing it.
Yeah, but who'd he spend it with?
Yeah,
Ready.
His best customer.
yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah,
you-
Danny bid it deep, cheaper.
If you could do it.
I'd say Danny would have done it.
No, that one. You sell the rock at $5 a load or whatever.
They couldn't sell the rock was the deal. Kenny did it.
Right.
Me and Joe told me that was bullshit.
I didn't even go.
That's why they had to go to a different
It's
Nothing.
government
I
entity
don't want them to know how I get
to the
so I can
county.
into town.
If it's the county.
I'll go get in the morning. There's a
But they aren't
ton
gonna
of shit.
You gotta go kill a bull.
You
gotta go kill a 300-pound bull.
No, I'm gonna kill a spike, send him a picture and say, do this will make it?
Told Ashley I was gonna do yesterday was shoot spy.
Yeah.
So did yours score, Chuck,
They have a good email.
score better than Parker's?
What?
I was asking Chuck if his sheep scored better than Barker's.
I don't know, what's Barker's?
I don't know.
You know,
I'm just curious.
he's got the horn length. I think I've got the hem.
Yeah.
His horn, I don't understand. Because they didn't get
And which scores more?
the length of the.
Length?
That,
Doesn't it give you more?
yeah, what you do is really weird score. It's just score with the round. And then you take the total sum. Sides.
Yeah.
More spots, where you made. Yeah, they round. And then you add them all together, I guess, is how it is, from my understanding.
I've never scored a sheep, so I have no idea.
Then-
Yours looks bigger.
Huh?
Yours looks bigger.
It's bigger, it's heavier. Zoomed off, they're that big, they're zoomed off.
You getting a chest mount or? Hide your mouth.
Just a short.
I don't think we got fixed.
I mean, I don't have any full life size. The only thing I have life size.
Is what?
A wolf. So I can put it right on my front door. Seems growling.
Put a motion deal on there.
That's 7 and it's. 4 and then that's what.
It's getting harder and harder to kill wolves. There's everywhere you could shoot them.
I don't know how you see so many. That's what pissed me off.
This makes stories up.
No, I've seen pictures of.
Yeah,
That's my mom. It's all on 10 years ago or better. Up by Medicine Bow.
well, me and Sharon were delivering propane is when I seen the first one. Out by Twin Groves. Yeah, line.
I know they're up in Medicine Bow, cause we hunt on this Bill Ellis ranch up there. And it goes within maybe a mile of the highway out of Bow on that first one.
The collared one, me and Bub seen going to Greeley was on Halleck Rim. Just loping on Halleck Rim, had a collar on. It's a black one. Yeah, the one up on the range was German Shepherd colors kind of.
And that one that I seen, you have the picture of them like Alex.
Yeah,
There was 2 of them there. And they were both kind of the gray white wolf.
yeah, they look just like the ones I seen at Fox Park too.
Oh, is it?
The ones at Fox Park were 50 foot off the road.
I've never seen one out here. I don't, what have you seen?
I was taking a skidster to there and dump it off. It was slicker than shit, or I'd have got a good picture.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's pure luck. I didn't see the one up on the range. Bo and Bub seen it. It ran right across there. And I'm like, out there full of shit. I went over there to the tracks and chased it and I got within 10 feet of it. But it got in the trees. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Oh.
No, I haven't.
It's pretty easy.
No, but I'm in a council meeting. I'm at the council meeting.
They have got routed like shut there.
I'm enjoying the moonlight. That was.
I'll put that.
It feels like. You are.
No, that one ran across there and I'm like, where did it run across? And they're like there and we were unloading snow machines. I jerked it out there and took off till I hit the track. Then jumped on the track and it went across the opening right at the parking lot and got on that logging road that's on the other side. And that's where I almost caught it. And then it jumped off in the trees. And I thought, I didn't have a gun. I thought, well, by myself.
You weren't gonna roam us in.
Romus was by himself too.
Yeah.
That'd be a handful.
150 to 200 pound dog.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's big. Done.
Okay, at 6 o'clock, we'll call this council meeting to order. But everyone, please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here.
Here.
Councilwoman Beck,
Here,
Councilwoman Beck,
Somebody's muted.
here,
Jacob Flutie,
Here.
Councilman Jerry Flutie,
Here.
Kathy, can you hear us? It was just on. We'll move forward. We have a,
second.
okay. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, we'll move forward, people have left with, council meeting minutes on September 19th. Are there any questions or discussions? Oh, on October 3rd, excuse me. Okay. Good catch, Steve. We have a motion to approve the amended minutes. Read,
I'll make a motion.
and second,
I'll second.
all in favor,
I,
opposed? Okay, let's go with the approval of the agenda. I noticed one thing, and it's Never Forget Park. It's under the Community Center Joint Powers Board. It needs to be amended and moved up under Town Hall. Doesn't really pertain to Platte Valley Communities. Are there any questions, concerns? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment of moving Never Forget Park into under Town Hall?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move into approval of the financial statement. We have deposits in the amount of $363,243.02. Accounts payable in the amount of $90,224.80. Payroll in the amount of $38,486.38. And transmittals in the amount of $40,482.21. Is there any discussion? Questions? Do you have a motion to approve the bills and transmittals?
I'll make a motion.
Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we move on. Do you have any correspondence?
Thurman,
Thank you. Items from the public. You have the floor.
Cindy Carnes with the Platte Valley Kiwanis, and we were just wanting to know if it's okay for us to set up our ice skating rink at Veterans Island like we did last year.
Any questions on that?
No.
Any concerns?
No.
Do I have a motion to go ahead and allow the Kiwanis to set up their ice skating ring?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you, and I would like to say thank you to the town and Emery for trimming the trees at Veterans Island. It looks really, really nice. And it's gonna help with the ice skating rink and when we start playing pickleball this spring and summer. And our pickleball group is growing, so we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. You will make the arrangements to get that filled, the ice skate?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I keep in contact with Pat. And
Sir?
yeah, they came and filled it last year and they had a pretty good system. Didn't take hardly any time.
All right, thank you. Council comments?
Nope.
I just want to bring this up, was discussed a little bit in the last council meeting. It was also brought up in the planning and zoning meeting. We're changing the website just a little bit. And each department will have access to the city's website to post what they need to post. McCall Bureau brought it up with planning and zoning. Their minutes, we're getting it set up now, bear with us. Their minutes will be posted on the town's website.
Thank you.
And we're working with the other boards too. Kim will have access to the rec department. If Emery needs it through the public works department, you know, to let somebody know the road's gonna be closed or we're working on this there, he'll have access to it. All departments will have access to it. Any questions, bear with us. Hopefully within the next, 30 days, we'll have this all ironed out and people will be able to use that. Okay?
Great.
Okay, we'll move on to reports from departments. We'll move on to town hall. We have Woodsfield concession stand. Karina?
Give the security on.
Oh, no, you can speak into your microphone.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So Reed came in and explained that they have got siding stuff to be finished for the concession stand. They are currently with that amount of the quote and the invoice, it will put them over budget with what we have got allotted to them. However, we did receive that Wyoming gas community that the last town council voted on. And so that will cover what the deficit would be for them to be able to spend that to finish that concession stand. So I think
How much over did it put them?
about $1,000. But they have 2,560 allotted to them, and the never forget part, that check from Wyoming Community Gas was split in half with the Never Forget Park. So that money will be, it is already ready for them.
Earmarked for that.
Yes, it is.
You just have to make an amendment to the budget at the end of the year.
Yes.
The council, see any problems with that?
I don't.
And that's separate. That's the last council's.
That is the last council.
Money.
Yep, that you guys will be voting on still, with the one that we'll be getting for next year.
Yeah,
What you guys will be voting on where you want it to go. So
Yeah.
that's separate.
okay.
Any question?
Nope.
We'll just have to make a note. You'll have to track that through the year to know that at the end of the year. We'll have to take a look at the budget. Do I have a motion to go ahead and approve this invoice to purchase this metal siding to finish the concession stand at the Woodsfield?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? it was brought to my attention by Creed. He spoke to the Woods while we're on the ball field. He spoke to the Woods family. They have no problem with allowing flag football, adult softball, or other type activities like this on their field. That was just given to me today. We're gonna reach out. Kylie is all but done with the lease agreement for the Woods Field, and we'll have those stipulations put in there. And then we'll vote, hopefully vote on the lease agreement, or it's not a lease agreement, it's an agreement to use the field. I guess it's a lease, but we don't pay anything at the next council meeting. So that's the update on the ball field. Okay? Any other questions on the Woods Field? Move on to swims. Karina,
Okay, so this is the invoice for our quarterly payment that we pay swims to be able to have the service here. So this is the second quarter. Let's do it.
and that amount is
14,487.
Any questions on that? Do I have a motion to pay this invoice? 14,467.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Furnace replacement. The ladies here, the ladies called a guy in. One of the furnaces not working. He come in. It was part of an igniter problem. And he's having trouble finding those. And he was gonna order two if he can get them located. He said it was up to the town. He said the furnaces are pretty ready, available. We could buy one and he wouldn't charge us to install it until it come time, just to have one on standby. Or we could continue doing what we're doing and just letting him repair
How old is it?
them. Pardon?
How old's the furnace in there?
Probably since Carbon Power had the building. Would be my guess. He said they don't make that furnace anymore, but you can still buy some parts for it. So, he said it wasn't really an emergency that we had one on standby. But, he said that was totally up to us if we wanted one on standby. So I just brought it to the council tonight. Like you said, it was about $2,500 and then I think total it'll be about $3,500 if he has to install it. We did, in the budget we prepared for this year, we did allow to purchase one. But, you know, do we buy one and it doesn't go out and we wait a year and then that one's outdated, or however the council wants to do it?
I'd say repair the old one for the time being.
And get one when one goes out.
Yeah. Furnaces, like, they last a long time. I mean, an igniter's not that big of a deal.
He didn't make
Give
it
them a
sound
coat
like.
and gloves.
Yeah. Bring your big coats, ladies. But yeah, he didn't make it sound like it was a big.
So he hasn't found parts though.
He thought he could find parts for this. He said, normally all you gotta do is clean it. He cleaned this one, it's working fine, but he thought it would be a good idea
The
to have
plant.
one of these igniters on standby.
Igniter,
And I told him to go ahead and get one of those coming.
Yeah.
they go out pretty frequently. So, yeah, and they're not
I think
much.
they're only $50.
Yeah, they're not much. I'd say go that route.
I agree.
Okay, we'll just call him up and tell him not to order a furnace. Well, he wasn't gonna until we call. All right? We'll move on to Motorola Solution Security Camera Demo. These people reached out to us via the clerk, wanted to know if we wanted them to come and put on a demonstration of their security camera. I have heard no complaints with the security cameras we have over at the top pole.
There's been talk about enhancing what we have, but what we've got is certainly working.
Okay. And then the only other place we have one is at the airport, and we found a company that actually services those out of Casper and has it, and it was given to the airport board, and to see if one of them guys would reach out. So I will let Motorola know that we really, at this time, don't really need it. Any other discussion on that? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. We'll move into Octagon subdivision. Deliberation. And we just held a public hearing on it. There was no comments made at the public hearing. So. Is there anything you would like to add to this?
Yes, so the planning and zoning also held a public hearing prior to your guys' public hearing. They made a recommendation that it be approved with certain conditions. Those conditions were that assurances be put in place for the improvements. The code allows for several avenues for a developer to assure their improvements. Some of those is bonding, some of those is getting things done before it's actually approved and recorded. So working with the attorney and the developer, we came up with the bond will continue from this first edition through these improvements. And then if this is approved, this agreement will also, we will withhold the final plat, the signing and recording of the final plat until that road is done. So no more lots will be sold, the building permits issued for that third edition. It gives them the go ahead that once those improvements are done, it will be recorded and they can proceed. But at that point, until those improvements are done, we will hold on to that Mylar, and it will not be signed or recorded until then. And then they're responsible for plowing snow on until the roads are paved, etc.
The agreement, has everybody had a chance to look through the agreement?
Mhm.
Is there any questions about the agreement? We need to move on with this resolution.
Yeah, we should approve the agreement separate from the resolution probably.
Okay. Are there any questions about the agreement?
No.
Kathy? Okay, do I have a motion to approve this document agreement with the Octagon Estates third edition?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll move on. Madam Clerk, would you read the resolution, please?
Yes.
Resolution number 23-15, or resolution of the governing body of the town of Saratoga, Carbon County, Wyoming, approving the final subdivision plat of the Octagon Estates third edition located within the southeast 1 or southwest 1 quarter of section 14 township 17 north, range 84 west of the 6th PM, town of Saratoga, Carbon County, Wyoming. Whereas Octagon Construction Group, Inc. has submitted a final subdivision plat application creating the Octagon Estates third edition located within the southeast quarter, southwest quarter of the section 14 township, 17 north, range 84 west of the 6th PM, town of Saratoga, Carbon County. Whereas the purpose of the final subdivision plat of the Octagon Estates third edition is to subdivide a 3.9 acre parcel into residential lots. Whereas the Town of Saratoga Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on the final subdivision plat application at its September 12th, 2023 meeting. In a record of decision, recommended the application be approved with certain conditions. And whereas the final subdivision plat application of Octagon Estates 3rd edition has been reviewed for consistency with Chapter 17 of the Saratoga Municipal Code and other applicable town code. And whereas all applicable requirements for a final subdivision plat application have been met and all documents submitted meet the applicable requirements in Chapter 17 of the Saratoga Municipal Code and other applicable code. And whereas all requirements have been put in place through an agreement titled Development Agreement Octagon Estates 3rd edition, Octagon Construction Group Inc. and Town of Saratoga. That was approved October 17th, 2023. The subdivision shall be subject to the terms of the agreement. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Town of Saratoga that pursuant to Saratoga Municipal Code 17.16.030, the Octagon Estates 3rd edition subdivision plat here is hereby approved. Passed, approved, and adopted this 17th day of October 2023.
Do I have a motion to accept this resolution? Read.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Octagon subdivision has been approved. Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 868. We had the first reading title only at the last meeting. So we'll move on to it. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance 868, a revision of the ordinance number 2.24.020. An ordinance of the Town of Saratoga, Carbon County, Wyoming, revising chapter 2.24.020 of the Town of Saratoga Municipal Code, regulating the composition of the Recreation Commission.
Do I have a motion to accept this ordinance on the second reading?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we'll move on. Never Forget Park. Stacy Crimmins is here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you all know, the park project began 15 years ago after a local young man was killed in action in Iraq. But it also will, the park project will also be a tribute to everyone who serves or who has served our country to protect our freedom and rights. It is also an honor for law enforcement and first responders who keep us safe. 77 or 70% of Saratoga's veterans served in Vietnam, which is 2 times greater than any other conflict and greater than the US's 43%. The park will honor these veterans as well as others that were killed in action, prisoners of war, active duty, or deceased by creating a serene memorial area for remembrance. I believe we owe it to our veterans to finish Never Forget Park. Personally, this park means a great deal to me as my family who still mourn a veteran 10 years after his death. As a community, we must not fail to remember the ultimate sacrifices made for us. The committee is still working hard on the project and more volunteers are welcome. If you could watch our Facebook page for upcoming meeting dates, they will be posted there. I'd like to thank the Saratoga Sun for the article back in July that helped us to explain where we were in the process at that point. We do have a new logo and it's on our website. The website is www.neverforgetpark.com, and we have a Facebook page, Never Forget Park, Saratoga, Wyoming. far as funding goes, we would like to thank anonymous donor and the White Family Foundation for a generous gift of $50,000 through the Embrace the Valley fundraiser and Brush Creek Ranch. Grant applications have not been successful as of yet, but we are working on a few more by the end of the year, including the Land and Water Conservation Fund and the Daniels Fund. The current balance in WyoStar account is about $181,648. And when the recent donations were added, the balance will be about $268,000. So the construction documents are ready and the committee has been listening to the community and made some changes to the plan. We have added 20 to 30 more parking spaces by making the green space just a bit smaller. And we have also moved the parking lot surfacing project, part of the project to phase 3. So in phase 1 construction, we will be seeking out bids on construction to include site work, curb and gutter, drainage, and sidewalks. It will not include parking lot surfacing because we do not have the money for that yet. And our timeline, this is approximate dates. We would like to have the bid packages go out November 1st. We'll have a public meeting November 8th at 6 p.m. to gather input on the project. A site visit on November 15 for those contractors wanting to put in a bid. And the bid documents would be due, the proposals due November 30th. At the December town council meeting, we'll have a special meeting to open the bids, and depending on the costs, we then have 30 to 60 days to raise the remaining amount of money if needed. January 30th, we will be able to accept a bid and hopefully construction can start, weather depending, April 15. By June 1st, phase 2 can begin, which is irrigation, benches, trees and shrubs, and donations. We'll continue to pay for those items. So please consider donating to the American Legion, which is a 501c3, to the town of Saratoga, but be sure to never forget park in the memo line. So that is just an update on what the community, or the committee has been working on. So we are excited to be able to go out to bid in November.
Do you have an approximate, after taking the paving, everything out of that, approximately what we're looking at? According to the construction document?
Yeah, so phase 1 with curb and gutter, sidewalks, backfill, and site work and that type of thing. Sewer work would be 321,000. And like I said, we have 268 right now, but we also have expect to have some cost savings done by the contractors that want to bid, because we've come up with a couple of money saving areas.
Okay.
And the last thing I'd like to do is present a resolution to authorize submission of the Land and Water Conservation Fund program.
Before we do that, I need to ask the council if they want to pursue this WLC, they would have to change their application just a little bit. And just go to, have it in 2 phases. Do we want to pursue this? Now, if we are, I need a motion. So
I'm not understanding what we're pursuing exactly.
what they're pursuing is, last summer we went out and WLC put it all together in one lump sum. And the total was more than they can withstand.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did is they broke it down to where they'll do curb and guttering and sidewalks. And probably leave out there's one valley pan drainage and the paving. They'll cut it to drain, they'll do the dirt work, so it'll all drain towards the river and get everything in place. for parking and everything, it just won't have pavement on it. Am I pretty much correct? And
And this is the outfit that was supposed to figure the costs and do the survey, and
yes,
has the survey been all done? And
yep. In fact, they've got it all set up. They just need to come and stake it, you know.
yeah,
That's what they're basically asking to go out for bid and take take the major cost out of it at this time,
yeah,
just to get something started.
We just feel that if we can get the bid documents out and some movement there, that the community will see the progress of action on the park and continue to donate funds, and we can move forward.
I'll make a motion to move ahead with that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now you can read the resolution.
A resolution authorizing submission of an application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund program. Whereas the town of Saratoga has identified the need for a Veterans Memorial Park and has established a project called Never Forget Park Project. And whereas the 2016 Saratoga Master Plan specifically indicates the needs for improved access to fishing and recreation opportunities and encouraging volunteerism with youth and seniors and cleaning up public properties and roadway corridors. And whereas the Never Forget Park Project directly addresses the aforementioned needs by providing better parking and access to Veterans Island Park and the North Platte River, and scheduling specific opportunities for volunteers to build benches and plant greenery, and improving blighted town property along a busy roadway. Whereas the Land and Water Conservation Fund, administered by the Wyoming Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources, is a federal grant program designed to assist in development and/or acquisition of public outdoor recreation lands and facilities. And whereas the town of Saratoga will encumber 100% of the grant request funding totaling $318,400, which includes both federal funds requested and cash match for this purpose. And whereas the Never Forget Park designated fund and in-kind contributions are available as cash match for this purpose. And whereas the town of Saratoga designates that Never Forget Park will only be used for outdoor recreation into perpetuity. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the town of Saratoga, Wyoming, that the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to execute, and the town clerk to attest, a grant application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund administered by the Wyoming Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources in the amount of $318,400 in federal funds for the Never Forget Park project. Passed, approved, and adopted the 17th day of October 2023.
It's a resolution to apply for a grant.
Yep.
Do I have a motion to accept this resolution and have Stacy go ahead and apply for this grant?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, any other discussion on Never Forget Park? Okay, we'll move on to the police department.
Good evening. I've just got a couple of things tonight. Couple of calls since our last council meeting. We ran 190 calls for service through our dispatch center. There were 7 citations written, 6 warnings written. I was able to, we talked a couple of meetings back about the graphics for the vehicles. We got all that. Got that approved. We've got the graphics in. We had a company from Rollins reach out to us in order to put the graphics on. Signcraft is the name of the company. They also do this by wraps and signage, things like that. So it's Terry Wykeham's business there in Rollins, Signcraft. They gave us a bid which was substantially less for applying the graphics than what we had before. I ordered graphics for the 3 black vehicles. Like I say, those are in place. I think you'll be pleased with the way they look. And he gave us a bid of $900 to remove graphics buff and then apply on the 3 black vehicles. I'm holding off on the white vehicle for right now. That's after I have personally been driving it for a little bit. It's got a couple issues we're gonna have to look out. So before we go putting any more money into it, I really want to get it in and get it looked at and see what it's going to cost us to fix it. Some of it might just be some routine maintenance, but it does have a couple of electrical issues too. The fuel gauge isn't reading correctly. I've lost power in the part of the dash a couple of different times. So that might be one of the vehicles that we look at some point to maybe trying to get something else as well. So.
How many miles are on them?
Gosh, I can't remember, Mayor. I'd have to look, about 87,000 ish. So, and I don't think there's any warranty or anything left on it. So they can start actually at the end of the week applying some of these graphics on the vehicles. So by next week, we should have that done. Here earlier in the year, shortly after I came on board, we had a discussion about overtime. And there was confusion as to the way that the dispatchers were being paid overtime when appropriate. They were actually asked to work longer than a 40-hour work week during that time, and they were compensated at kind of a strange rate. They were required to work up to 84 hours in a 2-week period without having to get overtime, which they didn't qualify that. There are some stipulations in the Fair Labor and Standards Act that give law enforcement and firemen, there's a little bit of, there's a difference there. That overtime is sometimes we work more overtime until or work more hours before we're really entitled to overtime. That wasn't the case with the dispatchers. They were being paid inappropriately. When I realized that this was an issue, that's when we changed our scheduling around a little bit. So they're now dispatchers from about the middle of February, I think is when we really kicked it off after getting the town attorney and everything on board, where that anything over 40 hours in a work week, like most people are there due overtime. But unfortunately, that led us to the point where we had to go back and calculate what we owed the dispatchers that worked overtime. Now, consequently, they were paid an hourly wage for that time, but not all of it at a time and a half. It took our town clerk was able to put this together. We've been kind of waiting for it to get done. Jen was able to get on it and get it done very quickly, and I appreciate that very much. But as it stands is we ended up with 900 over a 2-year period. We had to go back 2 years. Once we realized that there'd been an impropriety in the way we were paying, we're required to go back 2 years to make sure they're compensated for that time. There were 5 dispatchers that were involved. 4 dispatchers were the crux of this, but it ended up being about 976.41 hours that we had not paid appropriately for. That in doing the wages themselves, we owe the dispatchers $8,104.91. That the checks have been, something we've got to do. The checks have been cut. The budget for dispatch is going to take a big hit on this. We were trying to get it done before the end of the year, so we could at least look at it with last year's, if there were any funds left over from last year. Obviously, that didn't happen. So just to kind of inform the council and everybody where we're at on that. So we're in a position now where we can pay the back wages basically that are with the dispatchers.
Questions on that?
Nope.
It's something we gotta do. It was approved. was rather involved for a little bit, with the attorneys on board and everything. And this is. So. Do I have a motion to pay the 5 dispatchers the overtime that they did not receive? And the total will be $8,104.91.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I will direct the treasurer to get the checks cashed and get it to the dispatch. Written, excuse me. And we'll get those handed out.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to the rec department.
Good evening. 2 things on the agenda today. The first of which is the employee benefit. I was asked to write up something that could be put into the employee handbook. So on page 32 of your packet is the memo that I wrote concerning this benefit for employees having access to the pool and the community center charge. I'd like to look over that and approve that. Send on then to the clerk and have that added to the employee manual.
Any questions on that? We actually voted on it at a meeting.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite written up, so
But this is official.
this is like the official verbiage.
Questions, discussion with. You read that, please. So everybody will learn.
It is a policy of the town of Saratoga to provide to the employee and the immediate family members of that employee access to the use of the pool and the PVCC Community Center gym free of charge. All policies and rules regarding the use of those facilities apply to the employee and their family members.
The only thing that I would add is that this, if we need to clearly communicate that this,
I will entertain a motion to pass.
I make a motion to pass it.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
I have a comment. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay.
I just tried my device. I just made a change. Can you hear me?
We're not hearing anything.
So.
Can you see that?
On her cell phone. I would suggest, would you please read that?
It was suggested that we include verbiage that classes are not included. And then she says, does free access mean all classes offered?
No, classes are not included. It's just access to the pool and to the gym. Does not include any fitness classes.
Just during open time.
Oh, wait a minute. Hi Kathy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't get my audio to work. I can hear you all fine, but mine's not working. Just if that's not included, I think maybe we should include that in the wording in the benefits so that it's not assumed that includes any classes.
There I can include, this does not include fitness classes.
Yeah.
That would probably be a good suggestion.
Or any classes.
Yeah, any like swimming classes, if we get an instructor over there. Yeah. That's a good idea, Kathy.
Yeah, that would, otherwise, I mean, I think this is great that we have it written out and defined. I just wanted to be clear on that part of it. So that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll add that.
We can go ahead and pass this. I just need an amendment with that wording added to this. And if you want to amend your motion, Mike.
Yeah,
Amended to have this.
Yeah.
This does not include any classes. Do
it does not include any classes, yes.
I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. I'll hang up from here and just continue listening. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is a special event application. This application is for the December 2nd fun run, Ugly Sweater Fun Run. It starts at 10 a.m. We're partnering with the chamber to host this event. The application is submitted, just needs your approval.
I think it's fantastic that you guys are partnering with the chamber. I really think that's a great idea. Gives us a little more leeway in what we can do.
Yep. And in fact, the application and flyer is already on Facebook and she shared it on her chamber page and such. So,
any questions on that?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve this special event?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I have one thing I want to add to this. You remain there. Guys, we're having trouble finding her help for open gym. We're paying $10 an hour. I don't know if we could, I'm open for suggestions. I don't know if this will help. Maybe we could bump the wage up like an hour, $2 an hour. She did finally get an application today, but this has been out there. She's advertised how many weeks in the paper? Three or four?
yeah. Or 2 weeks in paper online.
I don't know what else to do, but she definitely needs some help. And if we don't get her some help,
You advertised online too?
I did it online. I did it on Facebook. I did it at the schools, did it in paper, obviously around
I just
and such.
even had her. take
Women
that to the
workforce.
camp. But if we don't get her some help, I'm afraid that we're gonna burn her out. And the only option we have is shut down some of the open gym. And you know what that'll bring, you know, so. It's open for discussion.
I wouldn't be opposed to $2 an hour. Pump it up to $12. That might.
How many hours a week do you think it normally is?
Suppose it can go up to maybe 10 hours a week. You know, Monday through Thursday from 6 to 8 is what we currently try to run. But I only have one employee right now.
Can't even get custodial help. And the community center paying $15 an hour. That's the only, I don't know what else to try to do.
Yeah, I say I don't have a problem with offering $12 an hour.
And her budget, I had this discussion, her budget will withstand it. So.
So go for 2. At the plan.
So can I get a motion?
I'd make a motion to give $2 an hour more for this,
Go to $12 an hour.
to $12 an hour, yeah, for this position.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You can advertise with that and see if that brings us any more luck.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to Department of Public Works.
The first thing we got on there is the invoice from the JPB board. For the majority of it is 9,000 for the engineering for this River Street water project. And then a little bit of Craig attending some meetings over there, and then a little info gathering, and then Lisa's regular 175 admin fee for that. So the big chunk of that come out of the special purpose tax fund, along with the rest of the project, that River Street project. This should put us, I want to say, about half of what the task order was for the total engineering for this over here. They were running about 75 and change, I think, and this should put us a little over half where they're at. We're probably sitting 70% design drawings. Craig had them quite a ways down the road. So they invoiced out for some more hours and won't paid.
That answer your question?
Yeah.
Any discussion on that? Do I have a motion to go ahead and approve this invoice for reimbursement?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
And number 2, Don, you want to come up here?
Sure.
Okay. Nathan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? You might have to call me.
is it on our end or on their end?
Heard Kathy earlier.
In the bottom right where there's a speed limit next to it.
Nathan is. Yeah,
Can you hear now?
Yeah, I got the audio coming through them, but
Josh, Matt, can you guys hear if we hold the phone like this? All right, so we know we're getting new floodplain maps. John in the past has risen questions about the accuracy. I saw some same things on there that I didn't necessarily think kind of ponied up. So we talked to S2O, we reached out to another firm. We looked at getting a kind of a third party review of these to see if there's any big smoking guns to try and improve our situation based on the technical review. With timeline coming in on our appeal process, we want to see if we get something done quickly. These guys did get their review done by the October 11th deadline. They came up here, we did a lot of look on the ground. So I'll let Nathan kind of go first, kind of give an overview of things he saw, and John, and then I'll talk and go from there. Go ahead, Nathan.
yeah, so just a little bit of background. I've been doing floodplain hydraulics engineering for about 15 years now, and so I'm pretty familiar with this concept and these models. And hydraulic modeling is really where my expertise in engineering is. So when I started this, I wanted to just look for the easy mistakes that are commonly made in these types of models and studies, and those mistakes are not existent in this process. The modeling appears to be well done. Every input into the model seems appropriate, with an exception of the one question I had on the modeling was related to the geometry of the survey. There's obvious berms shown within the cross sections on kind of the edges of the channel bank. that don't exist in reality. And being on the site and walking it and looking at it, these berms don't exist. So those raised a question for me. And then the only other real question that I had out of it was something that I don't think was done incorrectly as much as a limitation of how one-dimensional models and flood studies are done. Is at each cross section as you go down the river, the model is, or the river is modeled in slices, and you get a slice at representative locations along the river, and then it just connects the dots between these representative slices. So some of those slices early on had raised a question of, is this accurately modeling what is occurring on the west side of the river through the bulk of town? In the preliminary maps, there's a disconnect between what is shown as the 100-year floodplain versus the 500-year floodplain. And then there's areas where being out there driving around and looking at the different places, they look lower. And so it was a little, why are these areas disconnected or not connected? And one piece of that I think is related to a limitation in a 1D model. And then the other piece of that is the flooding out there is really shallow flooding. And there's an image within the memo that shows flood depths in there. And most of that area is 6 inches or less of flood water. So I think that shallow flooding largely explains why that area was mapped the way it was. I did, as a verification on that, I ran a very simple 2D model. And it was very rough. It's not something that you would ever imagine regulating from, but it was a quick dirty model to get an idea of, can I reproduce close to what the official model is producing. And that 2D model does not include the bridges and was very coarse, and it largely reproduced what the proposed FEMA study is showing. The differences in water surface elevations that I saw from a 2-dimensional standpoint from 1D was largely in locations around bridges. And so I think it's a limitation of not having those bridges in there where I thought differences in elevations. In the town, the 2D was reproducing results within 1/10 of the 1D model. Which is really good for having a different way of modeling these. So really, there's a couple of things within the mapping that I think could be explained or improved. The big thing on the map that I think needs to be addressed is they don't show the actual cross sections that were modeled on the proposed maps. And that should be a really easy thing for them to fix and update and show those lines that go all the way across the floodplain. In the maps, it shows the cross sections ending before it gets past the inundation area. So that was the first thing I looked at in the model was the certain cross section. And it is. So I do think that it's worth asking for those maps to be cleaned up and show the actual information on them and show the real cross sections. I think it's worth making a comment about the geometry and the berms and just ask where that survey came from, because those don't really seem to represent reality. But outside of that, there's several things within the model that are written in the report as engineering judgment. And one of those is ineffective flow areas in in the report, they say the ineffective flow areas are the model is really sensitive to ineffective flow areas. I think it's worth asking for a description of how that ineffective flow area was sensitive. But I get the impression based on the ineffective flow areas and the roughness values that were chosen were all on the low end of what's normal. I'm guessing, and I've seen it a lot before, which is not really a guess, it's a hunch. My suspicion is that they chose those ineffective flow areas in a way that made the results the most beneficial to the town. Some of those ineffective flow areas can cause your water surface to go up or go down. And my hunch is they picked the ones that kept the water surface from having big increases in any individual cross section. So that's kind of a long-winded, probably overly technical summary, but ultimately I think they did a good job. There's a couple of things that are worth bringing up and asking a question on though.
So Nathan, outside of that additional kind of comment conversation style of approach, do you think we have long-term, if we were to invest a bunch of money into a Loamer to try and I guess the word would be improve this situation, do you think that's probably worth the town's time and money to go that far past, having some additional conversation with FEMA?
I think you're playing with a double-edged sword. If some of these minor engineering judgment things, you could go back and change and justify them and defend them in a Loamer. The survey and the cross section, I think, are really something to ask them as a part of their process of redoing the study and redoing the mapping of saying, hey, this cross section doesn't really look like what's here. Can you explain it or correct it? I think there's just minor changes that could be made to the existing study that are within that purview of the comments on the study, rather than saying we're going to go back and just Loamer this and see if we get a different result, because you may not like the result.
Okay. All right, John, you're up. You got anything else to add?
Taylor. Question for Nathan.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Nathan, one of the things that I've talked about in the past is my confusion about how the base flood elevation for this model is higher than the flooding. It's lower than the flooding that we experienced in 2011. And yet areas of town that did not see any water in that historical event that everyone here in town witnessed are shown as, albeit maybe 6 inches of water, but are shown in the flood zone on this map. Can you speak to how a lower flood elevation than what was experienced in 2011 could show that result in the model?
The limitation of modeling, there's modeling is always, the quality of your model depends on the quality of your data that goes into it. And the limiting factors of our data in this model are topography. And it's a combination of LiDAR and it's a combination of survey cross sections. My understanding from the report, and it was a little vague in the report because there's multiple LiDAR sources stated in the report, because the report was countywide and not specific just to Saratoga. But my understanding is the LiDAR was either 2011 or 2016. So that LiDAR should be very representative of reality. then the surveyed cross sections could go up or down, one way or the other on how exact they got those cross sections. From that point, you're taking, in a 1D model, each cross section of the model gets a flood elevation. That's the result of the model. And then you create a surface that just connects the dots, essentially, from the cross sections. So there's no variability between cross sections of what the water may be doing. So maybe there's a limitation in there where an additional cross section would change results. Some of that could just be, it could be the LiDAR, it could be sandbags that were put in place during flood events. There's a handful of things that could go into it. Some of that is hard from an independent review of a model, having been given the model, the terrain, reviewed it, gone around the site and driven around town and looked at these low areas, and there's nothing out there that jumped out at me as missing from the terrain or an error in the terrain. So it could just be an issue of quality of data in, quality of data out, and the map's not being perfect. And some of that is when you start looking at 6 inches or less, it could just be an imperfection in where that elevation is being assigned.
Okay. Very long answer, Nathan. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll try to be quicker.
Like getting walked through an open heart surgery. None of us are tracking with you here.
I'm tracking.
John's tracking over here. He's got his
I'm the
scrubs
only
on.
one though.
You got any other questions, John?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I don't, I know it's not a forum for an engineering debate, I guess, or not a debate, just a more technical discussion. I still don't, I read his report, and Nathan, you did a great job. I know you had a limited time, but I thought your review was thorough, and the things you pointed out, I think, are very valuable to the town to have, and I appreciate it. But I still don't understand how, if there's less water in the river than what we saw in 2011, how we could have more flooding in the model. It's still something that I just can't square in my own head. And you mentioned earlier that, it's kind of a double-edged sword, and we kind of need to tread lightly on how far in depth we go, because we may not like the result of a more thorough, more accurate model. I get that. And it's a little bit like, the trolley problem, the trolley dilemma, where the trolley's heading towards one person on a track, and you have the ability to throw the lever, or it's going to 5 people on a track. And you can throw a lever and kill one person instead of 5, but now it's on you, right? Rather than just letting the natural course of things take place. I kind of feel like that's where we're at. It's like, by meddling in this too much, it could have, like you said earlier, it may take 5 people out, but it may put 5 new people in.
Or 20.
Or 20, right. And I don't want that. I don't want to pull that lever. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I just don't want that.
Well, then we could have a 200-year event and everything done.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's debating that at a 200-year event, but there's some event that's going to flood town. I've never argued against that. My argument is, should we all be mandated to purchase insurance based on a faulty study? And whether that's somebody, one of the 5 people that's in now that would be out, are they essentially paying for somebody else's risk? Or are we just all paying for somebody's risk in Florida? Right? That's my gripe. But I understand the position that it may not be worth pursuing this any further formally, may not be worth the town's effort, money, et cetera. I get that. And so maybe we can just proceed with the comment. You mentioned there being a comment section where we have the ability to share these comments about the berms and the cross sections and these anomalies that maybe we can get FEMA to take it upon themselves to evaluate this one more time without having to invest 80 grand or 100 grand in a Lomer. I mean, I get that could be a very expensive thing to do with a very low return. I get it. And certainly no guarantees. I'm just, it still doesn't make any sense to me.
I have a question for Nathan. Nathan, if you say that somebody like Emery can reach out and ask that question that you're referring to about where they come up with some of their data.
Yeah, our comment period ends October 26th, and we could submit comments during this 90-day appeal period.
Okay.
And we could do that, and we could submit the kind of 4 things that came up. And that would be kind of the path going forward, either submit those or just be done.
Okay. If we ask for him, would that change his answer? I mean, I guess what I'm asking, is it worth asking for the clarification on how
it's hard saying what it's going to do. There's such intricate parts of the model that aren't these big smoking guns, and all added up, they could change something one way or another. But whether they're going to, halt the whole statutory process for those, I couldn't tell you.
All right.
At this point, without coming in with a real big smoking gun, I don't see him changing it. I was hoping we would see something like that kind of explain things. It makes things seem make a lot more sense to me after walking around town and looking at the model with Nathan and stuff. But eventually there's a decision we've got to make. How hard do we want to bird dog this trail, and how much money do we want to spend? And that's where we vote.
Okay.
I know, I feel like there's no smoking gun either that has been presented to us in the memo. But there are bullets in here, right? Like the inundation boundaries on the west side of town may not be well represented in the mapping. Well, there's a couple hundred people that live on the west side of town, like it could be a big deal to them, So I guess if we can put some comments together and send them to FEMA, that would be maybe the middle ground here on what we can do that's short of pursuing a Lomer at great expense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Nathan, thank you very much for everything you did.
Everybody says thanks. Can you hear the mayor?
Yep, just my pleasure.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna hang up on you.
Okay.
Thanks again, Nathan. You guys have any more questions for Emery or John?
I don't.
Do you?
I think basically what he's saying is we could open a can of worms that could make things a lot worse.
There's a lot of
Look at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of engineering discretion in the modeling to a certain extent. I mean, you're allowed, like Nathan said, engineering judgment. And we could hire a guy to do a model and he could see things a little bit differently than this guy, but FEMA would allot both of them to go through. So unless we have a really good, that's what we were looking for, was technical gross negligence. That looked like how the map was representing the model, looked like there was some pretty big things wrong with it. And there's definitely adding up these small things. There's definitely some things that could be improved. But we could send in these, I mean, basically these 4 bullets and say,
See what they say?
I'm in favor of laying it down, to be honest with you. I know John is frustrated. If we're gonna ask, that would be my opinion.
That's, I agree with that, just because I don't think our little town is going to change what FEMA decides they're gonna do across the country. That's the issue, right? I mean, it's not just here, it's gonna be a kind of a nationwide mandated thing, correct? Or am I understanding wrong?
No, I think you're right. I'm just trying to, put in a good fight for people of Saratoga, even though it's the federal government. I get it. I understand exactly how you feel like, and you're not wrong, it's. Even
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it needs fought. I don't think this is the process that's gonna change it, I guess.
Well, we
I
could
could be wrong. I don't know.
And we could submit a loamer down the road. Like you can apply for a loamer at any point in time. The problem is where this river out here dumps sediment, it changes all the time too. So we could have it surveyed, have it profiled, submit a loamer, and then the actual realistic conditions of the floodplain could change.
I see both sides of it. I see where John is too. With the picture of the floodplain, there's nothing even connecting to the river on their graph coming across for water to flow across.
And yeah, Nathan should have touched on that. If you get into the model and he reran it in GIS, it will connect a little bit of a sliver that hops the highway.
Yeah.
Their mapping is.
It doesn't show it.
No, it doesn't. It should. And then that's the same place where they were talking about the cross sections not going all the way through.
Yeah.
And I'd have those comments we could say, hey, those cross sections should go all the way through. And if that connects, it should connect on the map. I think if some of those things were represented a little bit better, I'd have not raised such a eyebrow.
Yeah.
Is it a groundwater thing?
No.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's all the plat coming.
Councilman Cooley?
I think if we mess with it very much, that we could wind up in worse shape than what we are. I've never known the federal government to cut anyone a break.
I think we've done our due diligence. We've definitely looked into it for the town people. We just need to decide if we want to drop it. I think it was something we had to do as a council.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you guys did, Thank you for going this far.
I appreciate your time you spent with Emery and going over this, but
I just think it's a battle that we more than likely can't win.
Does the town have to be,
At this stage in the process.
has to be in on,
At this stage in the process, yeah, I believe that's the case.
no other single
In the
resident can,
in the future, individual residents will have an ability to do, elevation certs,
Get a loamer.
lomas, letter of map amendment. But, collectively, that's probably more than $80,000 or $100,000 if you take everybody's, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 effort.
yeah.
If they could get out.
Right.
I mean, it is good to know that the flooding is lower over there, which means if you got a 12-inch foundation, there's a possibility you could get out over there. We're not looking at trying to scale a 3-foot deep flood zone over there, but it isn't a cheap process. It requires a survey and verifying your finished floor elevation.
Once the map's published and adopted, then people will have something to file a LOMA again.
I guess what I'm asking is, can you as a resident still pursue it, even if we vote to drop it
Yes.
before it's adopted?
No.
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 Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would have to be, we've gone through this new iteration and now they'll do final acceptance on it and then you can start the process. And maybe we just consider helping our residents, like give them a checklist or maybe gather the right information, because you do require survey, you do require certain certifications, and you can hire a person and do several at a time. So maybe just by providing our folks some information. Additionally, I'd like to point out that technically, if you're required to cover the expense of this flood insurance, it's only for the portion of your loan that is owned by the bank. So just keep that in mind. So many of us carry hazard insurance, and you may carry, for the total replacement of your home. And my experience was with the insurance provider I had at the time that I started that, they just said it's for the amount that your hazard insurance is for. But I moved insurance companies since then and found out that you're really only responsible for the portion of the home that the bank owns, that the FEMA folks can enforce. So there are some little like tips and tricks that I think that for those folks who may be in that position where they have to start paying flood insurance, it's important to know some of those little things. So I think that we could work on this collectively and as a community assist folks with this effort.
I think that's a good point, Kathy. I don't know if everyone who ends up with flood insurance even knows that Aloma is a possibility or even an option that they can look at down the road. I think it gets stuffed at you and people pay it, and that just is what it is. I got flood insurance. And
Yeah, I think. The driver though is, property values, right? And so when you go to sell your house, if it's in the flood zone, and you don't have a LOMA, that new buyer is gonna be, probably best case scenario, looking at an 80% loan to value, right? And so.
Harder to sell.
So, it's gonna impact valuations throughout town, right? And so I think there's gonna be, once this all gets implemented, like there's gonna be some hurt. And I don't think that people really understand what's coming.
no, I don't think that's inaccurate either. We'll have new ordinances and buildings in the floodplain finished floors will be required to be at a certain height. And then if we do any freeboard on top of that, I mean, it's this new map. We are going from like basically the Stone Age of the floodplain to as updated as we can get with known elevations on everything. So the next 2 years, things will be a lot different with the floodplain. Your only other option outside of that is is opting out and then possibly getting sanctioned, which is probably not the ideal situation.
Well, we're all on our own, huh?
yeah. Well, it's decision time. I will entertain a motion either way.
I'll make a motion to not move forward any further with this.
You'll have a second to Councilman Jacob Fluty's motion.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion?
I do think that we could take that opportunity to help educate one another with this. And maybe that's the town's role here, is to pull the community together as these changes are enforced.
Is this with notification, Kathy, or?
No, I mean, I think that, John said, are we on our own? But there are a lot of folks that this is going to affect, and both positively and negatively. There are some folks that were in the floodplain that are no longer in the floodplain, right? But I think if we maybe just consider being a resource or assist folks or just update some folks with information on how to pursue a LOMA and or some contact information. So a lot of this was provided by FEMA when they did these presentations previously. So maybe we just put it in front of folks again to let them know, what kind of recourse they may have.
John, do you have a way to maybe put a sheet together with kind of what she's talking about, maybe where somebody can come into the town hall? And
I think we have some of that stuff from FEMA.
Yeah, Kim.
Yeah.
Sheet
Yeah.
Just be probably doing that.
So Kim Johnson, who's the he's a state floodplain coordinator for Wyoming. FEMA has a lot of fact sheets, and they have a lot of fact sheets for those things. So as we move through this process, those can be posted on the website. We could do a mailer down the road too. We're still.
Yeah, we do have access to that.
They do have a lot of, if you want to call them fact sheets, there are quite a few of those.
I'll hand out pitchforks.
Right, no.
How's that?
That'll work.
Any additional discussion?
No.
Call for a vote. All in favor of Jacob's motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay,
And thanks for your time, John and
John, we do appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
And
No, I do agree with you. I just,
follow Kathy's recommendation. We'll get some of that stuff from FEMA. Okay, thanks, Emery. Thanks for all your hard work on that.
So I just said there's two other things on there if you want.
Yeah, I would just agree to move forward.
Oh, okay. 21, we discussed having the wells sediment air developed out of there. Joint Powers Board's wanting to move forward with that project, so we'll be putting together kind of a short form contract with the well drillers, probably looking like Watson out of Laramie. So we'll be seeing that by next meeting or something coming across the table, but it'll be all five. And they're wanting to do that this first go around and get anything cleaned out, kind of put us on a baseline of how much sediment's in each one of them and get them hopefully back down to square one. And then 22 on this wading pool. So we know the kiddie pool is pretty much needs replaced. There's not a lot you can do with it. It's got a squishy spot in the bottom. It's causing water quality problems. I am not a pool designer. I don't really know how to spec out a project. We looked at putting a liner in it. Those aren't readily available, or kiddie pools. They're all kind of a shallow end, deep end type deal. So I talked to a company called Bond Aquatics, and they were willing to come down here, look at the pool, basically spec out a project or replacement. And then that gives us a project to work with if we need to bid it out. If they end up getting a project, any costs they accrue with that, they would credit towards the project if it got over a threshold to where we had to bid it out. There's only a couple of pool companies in the state. It would be up to $1,000 to have them drive over here and spec everything out and look at the best way for us to fix that. That would have to come out of special purpose tax money. Like I said, I mean, I could probably come up with something, but I'm not a pool, as far as gunite and what's required behind all of that. I've seen it done. I don't know how to spec out a pool.
I feel like if these guys are willing to come over and look at it, spec it out. And
like I said, all the money would go back towards the project if we were just give it to them. But if we meet a threshold where we have to bid it out, at that point, we would pay them for helping us put that scope together.
what's the cost?
It'd be up to $1,000. to have them come all the way over here and spec all that out.
Once it was spec'd out, would it be a bidding proposition then?
Yeah, they'd have a price, hey, this is how we would fix this, this is how much it would be. And so if it got over that 75,000 or where we wanted to put it out for bid, we would be able to take that information and put that out. And then they'd still be able to bid on it. And if they didn't get it, we would be responsible for
There
basically,
is money in special purpose tax set aside strictly for the pool.
yeah.
So that's the only thing we can spend it on, so.
Yeah, and there was some from the pictures, there's some cracking in the deck in between the pools. And they wanted to just come look at all that and see, we probably want to fix that at the same time. I just don't want to. Never built a pool. I don't want to say we need to do this or that, and then we do it and there's a big old fat crack in it the first year that we do it. And
Know how much is set aside for the pool?
148,000 between the two items, or 75 something and change for the wading pool, and then another kind of additional roundabout for pool deck repair. Does that sound right, Kathy?
Yeah, that does sound right.
I think we should move forward.
Yeah, I do.
It's a problem. We need to get it fixed. Now's the time to fix. Hopefully they can fix it in the spring before it comes time to open it up. And that's my feelings.
I'll make a motion to move forward with that.
I'll second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Water and Sewer Joint Powers Board, next meeting, November 8th, kind of talked about the well servicing plan. They're also still kind of working on some ordinances and then maybe looking at a process to allow somebody to disconnect from the utility fortuitously. We've got some work with the attorney on that. See where we go from here on that one. It's kind of the big things with them. Obviously, the River Street project kind of continues. At some point, we'll have to sit down and decide how long we're going to wait on extra funding or whatever to do certain aspects of that. Planning Commission, next meeting, November 14th. So right now, the Airbnb permit, that was kind of the talk, that has been tabled. The Planning Commission sat down with the attorney and we're not going to pursue that at this time. The town attorney has kind of talked to Jackson. They're trying to see what their latitude is with that. And we think at this point, they have a lot more money than we do. So let them fight that fight, get case law on it. And then if we want to do something.
They're in litigation, correct?
As far as she knows, there's the beginning of something occurring. I don't see it not drawing up a bunch of lawsuits. But I mean, if it could cost us a lot of money we don't have, let them do that. And it's a lot bigger, like, Joe's got a long-term rental and his property has never been messed with. And now you got people trying to mess with the short-term rentals. It's a lot bigger of a decision, I think, than any of us quite understand. It's a high level law interpretation. I mean, it'll how the court weighs in on that will probably have big interpretations on planning and zoning.
I wouldn't be surprised to see our legislators involved with something in that.
Yeah. So I think that's great. Just let the people with more money sue each other and then we'll get the crumbs and figure out what we want to do.
And that was Kylie's recommendation. Thanks, Emery. Okay, we'll move on to the Community Center Joint Powers Board.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
I don't have any updates. I don't have any updates for joint power for community center. Our next meeting is November 13th, 4:30 at the PVCC.
Okay. What about the Recreation Commission?
From our last meeting, we're still working on some of our action items, gathering some information on how to maintain volunteers and build up that resource. Just get some input from those other program directors within towns with the same population or similar populations. We're working on that, and we've got some other items that we're sort of working on as far as events and other possibilities for future programs and things for 2024, but nothing new since our last meeting. Our next meeting is November 6th at 6 o'clock at Town Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to the Saratoga Airport Advisory Board. What's going on there is they tabled a few things because they barely had a quorum. They wanted some more input from other members. They're still working on their master plan. They're moving forward on it. And they're also applying for a grant for a terminal. And the way it was explained is this grant is very difficult to get. But they're going to apply for it. And that's in the process of moving forward. Their next meeting is November 13th, 2023 at 3:30 p.m. here at the Town Hall. Okay, we'll move on to South Central Emergency Medical Services. Marie called me. She's their representative. They have nothing to add. And their next meeting is November 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Riverside Town Hall. New business. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before this council tonight? Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? Don't fight over it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Bye.